Thanks for waiting in. So we have a panel discussing brand purpose. Now, brand purpose has been an area which has been, around and often gets confused with several other areas. So today we have a panel which would try to elicit and show us, what are the different kinds of implications of brand purpose being adopted, not adopted, misrepresented, or anything which kind of help build a greater organization or a greater connect with the customers, with the consumers. So to begin with, we'll just ask for a quick 10-second introduction from everybody.
Good afternoon, I'm Siddhartha. I look after marketing, sustainability, and customer experience for Air India Express.
Hi everyone, I'm Anushree. I'm currently heading marketing and innovation at Godrej Food.
Hi, a very good morning. My name is Shruti and I lead the marketing for Tata Realty and Infrastructure.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. My name is Anil Gurnani. I take care of sales, marketing, service logistics and sourcing for TTK Prestige.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Simmran. I manage the growth for IAvatarZ Digital.
Simmran, you'll have to return it this way again. I don't think this one is working. Yeah. All right, so I'm Kamaljit and I look after data science and brand and marketing oriented analytics. I've been in the space for about 2 decades and I'm with Chi-Square as a chief data scientist. The topic that we have at hand, brand purpose, I'll just start with one aspect, that if you look at how consumers look at their brands, there's a lot of neurological studies which have been done, which find and tell us that more than cognitive pathways in the brain, it's the affective pathways which are important. 6 times more strong, 6 times faster also. So what it means is that you relate to your brands more at an emotional level. You try to understand what they stand for, and that if you identify with it, you have a stronger connect or a stronger connection. On the other hand, cognitive really means that you are looking at it very, very rationally. So when you have a rational evaluation framework versus a emotional or affective framework, your way of looking at a brand changes significantly. And therefore, here's an opportunity for most of the brands to at least spell out what they stand for, who they are, and at least define their brand purpose and be able to relate to the consumers, to the customers in a good way. So here we have several issues that we would like to thrash out with the panel. So to begin with, it will be good to have your point of view on what you think brand purpose really is. And is there a way to, is there a confusion which is there with, let's say, brand vision and brand mission or organizational vision and mission as well, or it's very clearly understood? So it'll be good to know what your point of view is. Maybe we could start with you, Siddhartha.
So in my mind, the distinction is fairly clear. The purpose is why you exist, and the vision is where you want to get to. The purpose is not something that necessarily needs to be. It can be, but it doesn't need to be articulated to the consumer. The consumer proposition is distinct from the purpose. And if we reflect upon it in the way in which we operate as individuals in the world, you'll recognize that as a human being, I may have a purpose, but you don't wear that purpose on your sleeve. When you introduce yourself, for example, I tell you, what I do, not necessarily why I exist.
Yeah.
And the purpose is a much loftier, longer term, intrinsic vision that guides your values, that defines who you are, that defines your character. The proposition can be quite distinct from that as long as it's serving the same purpose.
Sure, thanks. Anu?
Sure, just building on what he said, exactly, purpose is why you exist as a human being or as a brand or even as an organization. There are, I think, 3 core aspects of it. The first one is your purpose needs to be clear. Once you found it, it needs to be crystal clear, it needs to be simple. Only then you can rally an entire organization behind it. You can communicate it effectively to your consumers, and they can also perceive you in a certain way. If your purpose is not simple or clear, everybody will just end up getting confused. Second is the consistency. You cannot keep on changing it from month to month. It's not a short-term thing. It's built over a long term, right? It's the kind of impact that you create over a long term only when you are consistent with it. So once you have found the purpose, you know, you have that clarity, you need to be consistent with it. Third one, and this is the most important, which is the kind of contribution you're making. And when I say contribution, it is not just in terms of numbers, it has to be a meaningful contribution. The kind of impact that you're able to create, are you able to see it over a certain period of time? Be it a year, 2 years, 3 years, what is the impact that you've created in the society? And in a way that all links back to the products that you're offering or the services that you're providing in a meaningful way. It cannot just be that you're doing X, your product is X and your purpose is Y. No, it cannot happen that way. And that's why purpose is very different from your strategy, which is how, or your goals, which is what, or the vision, like you said, which is where you want to be. Purpose is really the why. Spend time finding it, but then make it clear, stay consistent, and it needs to have a meaningful contribution.
So I think the sentiment is the same, the how, what, and why. Most organizations actually know what they're doing, what they're selling. Most organizations also know how they're going ahead, how are they selling, how are they manufacturing, operations, everything. But then there are very fewer organizations that know the reason why they exist. And I like to tell myself, and I believe in this fundamentally, that consumers actually don't buy exactly what you sell. They end up buying the reason why you sell or why you exist. And today, with the newer generation that is more discerning, they want to align themselves with organizations that have understood their purpose, understood the reason why, have similar worldviews. That's where any brand will gain loyalty, trust, and growth. It's just a similar thing articulated in a very different manner. That's it.
Is there any example you want to quote from your own experience as well?
I have been very fortunate enough to be able to work on the purpose for Tata Realty. I've been personally involved in drafting the newly found purpose for Tata Realty and infrastructure, and which is defined as, we're in the infrastructure development space, and you know how when it comes to the space of real estate, the first thing that people look at is, or look at the industry is, it's not, can we trust them? That's the biggest factor. Are they going to be using, the materials that they're using, is it good enough? Will the paints that they're using within our walls, are they good? So coming out of an experience of the kind of, let's say, the non-trust factor, et cetera, we worked on a purpose statement which goes like, inspiring progress. And inspiring progress comes from the space because we're into infrastructure, we're into developing homes, we're into developing office parks. So inspiring progress across these genres, that is the economy, individuals buying homes, global organizations looking for office park campuses to grow. So inspiring progress by building responsibly and nurturing communities. And that was a very thoughtfully curated purpose statement that will trickle down through our entire organizational strategy.
I'll not repeat what most of the people said. So we understood purpose, something that what the organization or the brand stands for beyond numbers. I'll just take an example. For example, I work with TTK Prestige. So simple purpose that we have defined for our brand Prestige is, make the cooking easier, healthier, and safer for the consumers. Okay. So when you define that, so all your other strategies follow through. So what kind of, product development roadmaps that you want to carry on, what kind of communication you want to carry on, okay. We want to make, experience in kitchen not so daunting, but, something which is enjoyable by people. That's the reason why, the communication that we recently are also doing of Let's Get Cooking is something, defined towards that enjoy your imperfections that you do while cooking. We have products, across for all type of home chefs. It can be a novice, it can be an expert, over there. So that's way, how you carry on the brand purpose that you have defined for yourself. So it's not just a blanket statement that you write in a strategy document, but it's something you believe in, and all your, functional heads and all your meetings you follow through.
Yeah, and particularly important when the families are becoming nuclear, less and less time.
Yeah.
So how do you
Yeah.
make best use of it and still create something which is worthy?
More than important is other, quick commerce, as you rightly said, you have in food quick commerce, people don't want to cook at their home. So that's another challenge that we have. Okay, so that's why, so that's the reason why, how you communicate that, okay? So if you show all your communications of cooking and all of products, a big like rocket science or something, that cooking is something very clean and you only, communicate to the chefs, expert chefs, then definitely all your purpose goes lost. But when you say that, we enjoy imperfections, remember the first time when you cooked in your kitchen, okay, what are the mistakes that you did? Enjoy that. Whatever you cook, however you cook, what you make with your own hand, the taste of it is very different over there. So all these, comes along, when you define that and how you communicate across.
Absolutely. Simmran.
Well, everyone, all the friends have articulated really well, and I am just thinking, what can I add? But however, I'm speaking from my own experience. I've worked with many brands, wherein purpose today, it's really, really important. It's a key aspect for every brand. To give you an example, let's say Tata Tea talks about a small purpose, but actually if you look at the emotion behind it, it's talking about awakening. And then if you look at Surf Excel, as a matter of fact, Surf Excel says that the tagline is Daag Achhe Hain. But look at the feeling behind it. It is a strong message to the mothers. Let your kids play, let your kids get dirty, because we have a brand which will sort out your lives. And purpose is a key thing which I feel it's very important for we as a humans and as well as brands.
Yeah, thanks. Nice things all about the purpose, and we know it's very important to spell it out. But there have been situations in which the purpose has been used in a way maybe it should not have been used, or at least it has been read, even if the intention was good, but it has been read in a way which doesn't help the brand. Rather it may just put it in some kind of a contradiction socially or in some other manner. I can give you one example of what happened with Target, and they came out with a Pride collection for LGBTQ, and it was not taken very nicely by the community. It had especially, it had around swimwear, for trans, genders, and it was, completely reacted on, and the kind of cartoons they used, so it had, although their intention was all good, they were trying to liberalize, they're trying to, make it very equitable for everybody, but ultimately it ended up as a kind of a misrepresented, or it was called as a rainbow capitalism, if I am right. So rainbow capitalism is something, or some kind of capitalism around purpose, which touches chords which are not very soft, So do you see purpose washing really happening? And if so, what do you think, the organizations should do? Should they, get into very sensitive areas, or should they keep away? Because they will touch many chords, but it can touch the other way as well. So what do you think, Shruti? Let me begin with you on this.
Well, I think purpose washing is something we really need to be mindful about. I'd give you an example. I may not have a relevant example in terms of India at the moment, but I will share a global example with you. CVS and Walgreens, their purpose was to focus on people's health. What CVS did was, because their purpose was that we want to take care, we want to communicate that we focus on people's health, they ensured across all their outlets, alcohol and cigarettes will not be sold. Whereas Walgreens stuck to selling cigarettes and alcohol. So this is a classic case of purpose washing. While you believe you're saying something, but you're not living by it. So I think one needs to embed, you embed your purpose in your communication, just don't advertise it.
Siddhartha or Anu, you want to react to that, especially the point that should organization keep away from these sensitive areas, or can they still get in with some bit of more planning or more insight into it? I mean, especially from that aspect.
Well, I think when it comes to purpose and some of these social areas or social issues or causes as we call them, uh, I think purpose is something which has to be very authentic. It has to be linked to why you exist. If there is an ongoing social talk, or if there is an ongoing issue, or if there is some trend that is coming up and you just jump onto it irrespective of whether it makes sense for you or not, or it is a part of your purpose, it is the reason why you exist, I think that's when you get into trouble. So you need to show up with authenticity no matter what. If you're just going to jump onto certain trends or do it because it feels like the right thing to do without doing your due diligence, without ensuring that, okay, this really ties back to your purpose, this is why you exist, then I think there's a big chance that it might misfire, it might not, you might just get away with it, but then it would definitely not have the kind of impact you would want. It might not have any negative impact, but it will not add to the long-term impact that you are really trying to create through your brand or through your organization. So I think authenticity and that meaningful connection to a certain cause or social issue is extremely critical.
That it needs to become the anchor of any organization. So right from, your all the departments across the organization need to embed it in their day-to-day functions as well, right from where you hire, to your innovation, to your operation, to your supply chain, to everything. That feeling of what the main goal or main purpose is, I think that's where, now when I mentioned the example of Walgreens, etc., I think the advertisers, the marketing team, or whoever, the supply chain, whatever, there was a gap in understanding what the organization's purpose was. And because I come from the group of Tatas, there was a particular instance, we were having a conversation with Tata Consumer Products, and they decided that they will stay clear from not having aerated beverages as a part of their portfolio, and they will not even have these snacking, the namkeens and those bhujiyas that generally FMCG brands have. They decided that they're going to stay clear from this. So I think understanding and imbibing it through and through is what is really important.
Yeah, basically you said that it cannot be a fly-by-night kind of a thinking. You have to be really committed in and committed in for long. And maybe if you have to touch a sensitive issue, you better have some credentials prior, so you have to have, worked in that direction. You look to be adding something.
Just to add here, as
Yeah.
you mentioned about LGBTQ, it's a very, very sensitive topic,
Yeah.
though it is a very, very important topic as well.
Yeah.
But it is still not taken specifically in India or maybe other markets as well in a positive manner. People still oppose. There are like certain cities. But at the same time, when we're talking about a purpose, it is a real, it has to be how she articulated that it has to be on an organization level, on people who are working for the organization. The purpose should be clearer with everybody, and it should be like we have to work towards the goal in order to achieve the purpose. And yes, when we are talking, communicating, our branding, it has to be in a way the kind of words we should use, it should not hurt anybody's emotion.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Simmran. Siddharth, what do you think from a standpoint of investments which one has to make? Brand purpose, showing results against that is maybe not an easy thing, or maybe it is. Maybe Air India may have some secrets, or overall, all of you may have your own experiences as well. How difficult or how easy is it to demonstrate success on monies that you may put on brand purpose, essentially? So do you think there is an easy way?
So I think you need to look at it a little differently, and that's why the distinction between vision and purpose, and why I said the purpose doesn't need to be articulated necessarily. The purpose is not what you claim, it's what you enable. So in the case of Air India Express, for instance, I mean, and we have a shared purpose with Air India as both brands since the privatization of Air India and Air India Express. which is to transform a national institution into a national inspiration.
Yeah.
And therein we recognize the nature of what an institution is, the legacy that comes with it, the positivity that comes with legacy, but the aspirations of a nation that wants to be seen in the world as a leader. And we have that intrinsically within us. I mean, we speak of many Indias, and one size doesn't fit all, but in many cases one emotion does fit all. The distinction actually in profitability, or how do you drive profitability with purpose? What I've found in my experience is that having a strongly defined purpose and a proposition actually enables many of the conversations that happen within the organization, within various stakeholders, whether it is finance or people, culture, etc., to take those hard decisions because you have a strong enough shared purpose so that you're not distracted from that core vision and that core purpose. Many of the examples that we spoke about are where, and as marketeers, we're guilty of often wanting to cash in on the equity of the purpose that has been built over many decades. You know, you spoke of some of those examples. That's where the purpose washing comes in. But if you have a strong enough articulated purpose that is distinct from the proposition, then you don't fall for the easy cop-out, which is to say, let's now cash in on this by whatever is trending in this period. And I think that's important to keep in mind.
Got it. Again, you know, it's a kind of a long walk, and in that long walk, you cannot try to, you know, measure everything all the time. So it is, you know, something which you would build over a much longer period, and those investments cannot be equated, you know, in very short-term time frames. And there are other aspects also which you brought out. Yeah, you want to add something?
I mean, the measures ultimately for purpose or brand, why does purpose exist or brands exist? Because a brand is an articulation of a certain concept of trust that you're building, of a relationship that you're building.
Yeah.
You obviously measure brand trust and equity. And while we measure affinity, sales, loyalty, etc., I think the metric that is the success of purpose is how often do people keep coming back to you, and how do new people enter your fold? Is there a stickiness that exists for you more than it exists for other players in the market? Does your purpose resonate? And the airline industry has seen enough airline brands, especially in India, go out of business. Many of them, I feel, have done that because they have strayed from the purpose or not found a purpose that resonated with the audiences. A proposition like Fly with Good Times is great and brings in profits when you're talking about that balance. But does it resonate over a long period of time with the communities that you're trying to serve? Because businesses exist at the end of the day, not just to make profits, but also to serve the community.
Yeah.
And that's what will be the filter between the long-term success or even the existence of some brands versus others.
True. In fact, airlines has not been an easy industry to establish this, and the cost of servicing is extremely high. And to maintain that quality through and through, even though you may make a promise, you know, it can take you to, you know, anywhere down, you know, it can cause you big, deep reds in the balance sheet. So, absolutely. Shruti, you want to react, you know, from how you see measurement, especially because we spoke about some metrics here. What metrics would you be using if you have to, you know, establish that whether brand purpose is working, not working? So how would you establish that?
While there are many metrics that one can look at, your organization can choose to define certain set of metrics. I think some key ones is the sentiment of the consumer. Now, if you have defined that this is what my purpose is, and in terms of qualitative and quantitative metrics, of course, you know, everybody wants an ROI. So you have to be very clear in defining your qualitative ones, how you want your brand to be perceived, the brand purpose, you know, how you want your brand to be perceived in terms of, it could be, our purpose is XYZ and we want to come across as trustworthy or experiential. It can differ from the organization. Maybe for some it may be experiential. We want to hear the word experiential more often, and it can be for an airline or hospitality. For real estate, it may be trust. So that's an emotional measure that we would want to. The other one is, another measure could be, of course, the impact that you've kind of made, how much of PR mentions we are being, and when I mention in category A PR mentions, is it, what are they writing about you as an organization? Is it correlating to your main purpose or not? And of course, you definitely need to measure your customer loyalty and the sales that you're generating. So that comes as part of your quantitative and tangible measurements. One extremely important metric or experiment that you can do is, if you were to strip off your brand identity, your logo, from a particular advertisement and show it to a group of people, understand the kind of responses they give. Is it the same when your logo was there vis-a-vis when it wasn't? That's a very, very interesting, practical way to actually measure if this is what you're looking for.
No, thanks. I think that definitely helps. Anil has a point to add.
See, over here, just like to add this. Many of the organizations go for brand track and brand equity. Okay, it's very critical that when you do that, the purpose that you have defined for the your brand. Okay, whether the key metrics of that are being included in that brand track or not. Okay, because you are in an X industry, for some brands in that same industry, some other parameters might be important, but for your brand, some other parameters are important. And that all flows through the purpose of the brand. So once you have defined the purpose, look at what key metrics is you want to track and build it in your track, brand track or equity, whatever you are measuring, okay, through that. Because it's very critical that don't go as per what the industry norm is, but look at what your brand really stands for, what you want to measure, what you want to achieve, and include that in your tracks.
Yeah. So basically, what I gathered, and probably it looks like that there are few measures which you could continuously track, and few measures which you could do a dipstick, and you could find out where do you stand and where do you move.
In fact, for example, when you run a marketing campaign, when you look at the effectiveness of the program, you need to really look at, whether it has given you towards the brand purpose that you have started with. Okay, it's not only about sales, or top line, or the market shares. It is really whether it has added value to the brand purpose as well or not.
Sure. And with now AI trickling in, there is, and digital storytelling as well, coming in. There is actually a lot of variety to choose from, and it makes task very difficult at the end of the, decision maker, because 10 things walk in now and all look very similar. So it's not definitely easy to, make a choice, make a pick. So from a service provider standpoint, Simmran, it'll be good to know what do you think, where is the differentiation, number one, and how do you see it evolving over the next few years?
So, if you talk about AI, I mean, we all, I think none of us sitting in this room is not using AI these days. So all of us are, I mean, maybe 5 to 10 years down the line, we are going to see a huge difference when it comes to depending and trying to take out matrix from AI, or trying to, today AI is generating PPTs for us, they are giving us health solutions. So if you see most of even our organization, we also use a lot of AI in terms of understanding brands, their requirements, and how we can deliver better and have them achieve their purpose or reach out to their goals. So I think AI is, we have the AI expert.
Air India? Fair enough.
I think when you come to data, and I've fortunately or unfortunately lived 2 decades of seeing performance marketing take over most of the other metrics, I think that switch back to brand and purpose and the importance of that is coming in. Because the nature of search and the nature of how people are engaging, and the next step of the evolution of AI, as you use it more and more, the responses become more customized to who you are and what resonates with you as a brand. That sense is going to come back in. I think the other aspect from brand's perspective, because we have looked at specific metrics being important for a long period of time, and while data is very important and very relevant, data will tell you what people click. But purpose will define why they care. And that distinction of saying as we move into a more and more digital world, which at the core of the way in which it is structured is defined by binaries, how do you bring human empathy back into the picture? So in the articulation, when we went with the why we exist as a brand, or what the vision of Air India Express is, and what we realized at the advent of the initial couple of months of the pandemic, very interestingly, is Zoom's valuation at that point of time, the video conferencing, suddenly became in 2 months higher than the top 10 airlines of the world combined, which in essence gave us a mirror of saying this is potentially an existential crisis. If people communicate only digitally and through video conferencing, then what happens to conferences of this nature? What happens to people connections? And at that point we defined our vision as saying making meaningful connections between people, cultures and communities with a sense of unique Indian warmth. And we strongly believe that that human-to-human connection is going to become more and more important, because as people move into their own digital shells with the shut-in economy, real purpose for individuals is also going to be defined by interactions with other individuals. If you're in a place where you can enable that, then you have a relevant proposition in the lives of individuals. And it's important for every brand to find whatever is relevant in the context of how society is going to move forward, how AI is going to evolve. What role are you going to play in individuals' lives that it's outside that digital ecosystem?
No, absolutely, great point. And in fact, empathy and trust have been two most important things which are being spoken about right now. And with AI coming in, a lot of trust deficit has come actually. And the reach outs are so much that, the email open rates, for example, at one point in time were like 2%, 1.5%. Now they are in like 0.002%, 3%. So they have diminished significantly. So the same vehicles which you are using to, reach out to the people who would take time to understand what you are saying are no longer doing that actually. So I mean, that's the bad part. Brand purpose is a very overall concept. It's at a high level. But if we look at markets where you want to convey that message, they are very diverse, culturally, economically, socially. Anil, from you and from Anu, can I have some point of view on how this diversity you are managing when we talk about a global concept of brand purpose?
It's a very good question, in fact, because for us, culture has been very integrated, because consumers are most highly involved in our category, okay, and it's very cultural diverse. The cuisines are different in everyone's kitchen. It all depends on geographic, religion, where you belong to. So for us, it's very critical that we communicate right, with the right cuisine, with the right product, okay, rather than having a pan-India approach. In fact, many things, are different from state to state. Okay, in fact, some examples which I always talk about, for example, you can't promote a 3-burner in a AP and Telangana market. It's inauspicious. So if we communicate a 3-burner gas stove over there, you're out. Okay, so for example, you can't communicate an inner lid cooker in southern market. You need to talk about an outer lid cooker and an inner lid cooker in north and east. You can't talk about a food processor in north and east, but more in south over there. A 1000-watt mixie would be more relevant in south rather than in east. So there are such various cultural nuances that we need to really look at. That's why our media planning becomes very critical and important. Okay, we have various versions of it for each of the states and each of the categories. Okay, but it's good that though it's very critical that you understand the consumer of that state. And in fact, many a times it happens that in that particular state also, a particular religion will have, a particular culture will have a different aspect of looking at that product, okay? So, and you never know, in fact, many a times, we launch a product, after some time we come to know that the consumers are using it in a very different way also, very innovatively way, which honestly we wouldn't have also envisaged it that way. So for us in our organization, this, it's a daily routine actually, to understand, in fact, whoever joins the marketing team, the product team or the brand team, the first most induction is, understand all the cultural nuances of it, of the category, go to the market, understand what the consumer here is looking at, in which market, what of mixie for one consumer in a particular religion might seem different for different purpose, but it might be different for other things. Okay, one of the famous examples I also remember in one of the brands I was working earlier in washing machines. Washing machines used to sell a lot in Punjab, so we were surprised. What happened over there. Then we realized it was been using to make lassis over there. Okay, so honestly, I don't know any brand would have thought of that way. Okay, so these are very critical and meticulous things that you need to really look at while communication, innovation, and defining your brand purpose as well.
Well, I'll give you a very recent example. So I've been with the Godrej food, the entire group, for the last around 8 to 9 months. And when I joined, I was really overwhelmed because, in India, the food preferences, the kind of ingredients you put into your food, it changes. Like literally, even within Delhi, you can find multiple types of food getting served, the way we cook and everything, right? And that's what I first thought that, oh my God, this is so diverse. And ultimately, probably it's going to be like, winning in many Indias. But then what I realized, so I was meeting a lot of consumers in my first month, and I was meeting this particular young mother in a Mumbai, I think, suburban household. And once I was finished talking to her, her mother-in-law was sitting quietly there observing the whole conversation. And as I was about to leave, she said that, and she spoke in Marathi and I could understand it a little bit. So she said something to the effect that, okay, you're trying to understand why we eat what we eat or why we cook what we cook. She said, you know what, there is a very simple thing. And I might be wrong because she said it in Marathi and I'm just trying to recall what she said exactly. So she said something to the effect of, Jeun khyale deya, man pasun deya, which means ki jo bhi khilao kisi ko, dil se khilao. And this, when she said this, it took me back to my childhood days. So my grandmother used to say exactly the same thing. She used to say, jo khilao, dil se khilao. Rest, everything is fine. Simple cheez bhi de rahe ho, to dil se do. And I think this consumer truth holds across India, right? Whenever you go back to your home, you will know that, okay, whenever my mom serves me the food or whenever you are also serving the food, tum dil se khila rahe ho. And I think that was one consumer truth which would then remain constant across all the states, right? So as I sat down and at Godrej Food, since we are operating in the category of food, that entire purpose, the reason why we exist, that remains consistent. For us, it is all about nourishing families with a food that not only tastes good, but is also safe and is of the highest quality. Right? And then that would show up in the kind of things we do. We are one of the few backward integrated companies, right? The entire model of farm to fork, it holds true for us. We do that. All our farms are our, the entire production happens under our supervision. The quality is top notch. And of course, with Godrej, you can always trust that, right? In that case, your purpose is really showing through. Okay? In terms of our offering, the way we show up, that might change, like he said, right? The media planning becomes critical. The kind of products you do, what he said about the 3-burner not going to Telangana, that might change. You might not want to do a mustard-based cuisine down south because mustard is only for eastern part of the country. So the way you show up, the offerings that you make, that can be customized basis the states and the different regions. But the purpose, I think, the heart of why the brand exists or why the company exists, I think that anchor remains same. That does not change, and that comes from the consumer truth.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for sharing how the purpose can still be consistent, and at the same time it can have its own little nitty-gritties and fine-tunings that you could bring in. And there's so much learning that you were able to kind of bring on the dais very shortly. Can we open the stage for some Q&A? Yeah. So we'll have 1 or 2 questions for the panel. I think we'll use now next 10 seconds to just kind of wrap up. It's a very strong brand, purpose is a very strong underlying construct which helps us, connect with our customers much, much better. So I think everybody has leveraged it in different ways, but ultimately it is serving your ability to pass on what you stand for. And that's what you want others to believe. So it's not, fly by night, as we said. It's a very committed, long-term ask that you work towards building. Fair enough? Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.